Hello. Hi. My name is Anaislaure, and here I like to talk about books, reading, writing, literature, all things in the English realm. The weather has decided to drastically change, and it's going to be raining all week. Literally all week. It was extremely sunny and hot, and now there's going to be a consistent downpour, and I'm really excited about it. It's put me in the kind of mood to read sick romance that's very achy and wanting and throbbing and solemn. So that is the kind of literature I'm going to be divulging into this week. I have 3 books for you. 3 books that are all about sick, wanting, desire, love, all those good things. So the 3 books that I'm going to be reading this week: De Profundis by Oscar Wilde. I talked a little bit about this in my last video, my autumn reading list, and it is basically Oscar Wilde's love letter to his gay lover while he was in prison for being in that relationship. I just started reading it and it's like blowing me away already. It's sickening, like actually. And then I'm going to be reading White Nights by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I started reading this one a bit like during the summer, and then I put it down because it was just a lot in the moment. So I want to pick this back up. I've heard really good things about Fyodor Dostoevsky, a very renowned writer. He's a Russian writer. So his literature can be pretty thick and you have to just kind of hone in on it. So that's what I plan to do. And the cover is like, come on, rain, like the umbrellas, the fluorescent lights, the people, like that's, It's about unrequited love and wanting and inner restlessness within oneself. So excited for that. And then the last one is Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. Disclaimer, I'm very, very, very aware that this is not a romance story. This is not a love story. No matter how anyone tries to paint it, it's not a love story. It's a very excruciating read. And I started reading this during the summer and had to DNF it for that reason. It was extremely traumatizing to read and hard to get through. So I'm hoping that I've read the first part. I don't plan on reading it again because can't do that to myself. So I'm only gonna read part 2 and then we'll see how we get from there. But I'm a little scared. So specifically for Lolita. But yes, those are the 3 books that I'm excited to read on these rainy days about unrequited love, sick romance, disgusting desire. I will be checking in with you guys during the week to let you know what I think about these books. I'm excited. I have pretty high hopes for this reading list, and they're all classics, so you can't really go wrong with classics. Yeah. All right. Past 2 a.m. and it's time for me to go to sleep. But I've been reading De Profundis a bit today. I didn't have as much time as I wanted to, but this is my first Oscar Wilde book and I'm blown away. I think this might be one of my favorite books ever. We're just in the mind of Oscar Wilde as he's in prison and he's recounting all of the things that his ex-lover has put him through. I'm a third of the way done, but I'm loving it so much. This is kind of like you're sitting with your friend and they just broke up with their ex and they're telling you all the shit that their ex did to them and just giving you all the tea. Like, I'm just flying through it. The way he communicates himself is beautiful. I resonate with so much of what he's saying. Even though I haven't experienced everything, I feel it, and I feel his side of the story, and I believe him. He speaks with such conviction that it's like there's no way you can't believe him. I love this book so much. I love it. And I'm so glad I picked it up because it's amazing. You can hear the rain against my windowsill. How pleasant. I have 3 classes tomorrow, so I'm gonna see how I can fit this book into my day, but I will try to be a lot more successful than I was today. I just had a lot of shit to do, so it's time for me to go to sleep. Hi. So I have a class right now, but I'm not going because it's raining, like it's pouring really bad. Like, I can't walk in that. I can't. And it's like 13 minutes away. It's a 13-minute walk, and I'm not doing that right now. I'm not doing it. I know, a bad student. So I'm just gonna stay in. I already made breakfast. I just made breakfast. And I'm going to read my book and read about sick romance while it's raining out, like pouring outside. And like the sounds of rain, I really enjoy while reading. So I'm excited. I'm very excited. So I finished De Profundis and I absolutely loved it. It is one of my favorite books I've ever read. It is one of the best books I've ever read. And I was not expecting anything like this whatsoever going into it, and it just completely enthralled me the whole way through, entirely. Oscar Wilde has a way with words that is just hard to conceptualize. It's hard to put into words, funny enough. There's so much emotion embedded within his words, and in these letters he takes you through his highs and lows, his hatred, his fears, his regrets, but at the same time he doesn't regret anything because it's brought him to the place where he is now. As he is writing it, he is internally struggling. He contradicts himself a lot, and it just shows the nakedness, the rawness of being a human being, that loves deeply and completely and wants it so badly, but will never be given that same love by the person that you are in love with. And he's struggling with that. He's fighting that. He's battling that, but he's accepting it, or at least trying to. I want to read a few quotes that I really loved. As you can see, I tabbed everything up. I mark my books up, hardcover or not. I don't care. He starts it off with one of my favorite lines of his, literally the second paragraph of the whole letter. He says, "The thought that loathing, bitterness, and contempt should forever take the place in my heart once held by love is very sad to me." Ugh. This is one of my favorites. "To please you, what did I not do, always to please you?" Oh my God. He says, "In you, hate was always stronger than love. Your hatred of your father was of such stature that it entirely outstripped, outthrew, and overshadowed your love of me. There was no struggle between them at all, or but little. Of such dimensions was your hatred, and of such monstrous growth. You did not realize that there was no room for both passions in the same soul." My God. My God. It's incredible. There was another one. Where did it go? Here it is. "I sat amidst the ruins of my wonderful life, crushed by anguish, bewildered with terror, dazed through pain. But I would not hate you. Every day I said to myself, I must keep love in my heart today. Else, how shall I live through the day? I reminded myself that you meant no evil to me at any rate. I determined I would regard you as one suffering too." Oscar Wilde, you are something. You are something. There's so much struggle within these letters. There's so much struggle. He is dealing with being in prison for being in love, for doing everything and anything that his love wanted from him, going bankrupt for him, battling his family for him, and his love won't even write him a letter back. It's just, oh my God. This reminds me a lot of the love letters between Virginia Woolf and Vita Sackville West. This gives that vibe, but it's more of the desperate and wanting and desireful side that will never be fulfilled because you can never have that person that you truly want. 5 out of 5. I loved this so much. I'm so happy I finally read it. Yeah. It's getting late. It's like 2 a.m. and I am going to eat. Don't say anything about it. I don't want to hear anything. And then I think I might read a little bit. I want to start and finish White Nights and pick up Lolita maybe throughout the day. We'll see what happens. I'm hoping for good things, but this was a great way to start off this reading journey of sick romance. So I'm excited. It's so fucking good.
Greet the sun and the hills and the moon and the ocean by the shore in my evening, and the love you lost, you gained in a friend. But nights alone, you wonder, will you ever dare to love like that again? Like that again.
White Nights. This book was interesting in the least interesting way possible. So it was a story about unrequited love. It was basically a dialogue, like 50 pages of dialogue between a 17-year-old girl and then a person who seemed to be around her age. To me, he read as way older, but I could be wrong. I don't know. The protagonist has just never had any real human connection with someone, especially not romantic. And he longs for that with everything in his being. And he meets this girl. And then they just talk and get to know each other, and he wishes to continue to see her. They see each other every night for 4 nights. It's unrequited love. He falls in love with her, but she doesn't love him the same way. She loves him as a brother, but is also still kind of taunting him in a way that's like, oh, I'm surprised you haven't fallen in love with me yet. She wants him to be in love with her, but she doesn't love him. And she happens to be in love with someone else, a boy that she had met a year ago. And so in their conversations, it's mostly them talking about her love for this other boy. And the protagonist is trying to help her write a letter to the boy and win his love and affection whilst also loving her. Needless to say, they do not find love between each other. It's just a story about hopeless romance and wanting to be loved in the way that you love someone, craving for human connection and affection. But I feel like it was done really poorly. I can't say that because it's like Dostoevsky. I can't say that. It wasn't my taste. It was hard to like retain. Everything kind of like fell in together very easily. And it's like, I would lose my place like very often and reread things and I'd be like, wait, was I just here? Or it just got like mixed up in the language of it all. I also thought that the female character was very unbelievable. I didn't think that he wrote the female character very well. She was just very dramatic and like would always cry and was very needy. And like, I know that's women or people in general can be like that, but it just felt very milked and I didn't like it. I did not connect with the story. Was it a beautiful story? To me, not so much. To many other people, yes. I mean, it's very renowned. Like, everyone knows about White Knights. Everyone knows about Fyodor Dostoevsky. I just happen to not like it. And that's okay. That's okay. Very disappointed though, but I'm glad I read it. I'm glad I can say I read White Knights. And this was my first Fyodor Dostoevsky. Will this ward me away from him? I don't know. We'll see. We will see. I just really loved De Profundis and I have like really high expectations. I probably shouldn't have started out with it, but it's okay. The way that love was described in De Profundis just felt so real, so raw. I mean, it wasn't a fictional story. It was nonfiction. It was a very real thing. They were letters, love letters, and my expectations are just up here for like sick, gut-wrenching, longing love. And I feel like White Knights was not that. Yes, the protagonist wants love, like he deeply, desperately wants to be able to feel love and affection from another human being, especially romantically, but it didn't really translate to me, didn't really translate well. Like the love that he felt for the girl was real, but then it kind of felt like more fascination. It's a word, not like it's fascination, but it's also, what's the word? When you're in like interested, what's the word? Fuck. What's the word? Starts with an I. I'm gonna figure it out later and I'm gonna be so pissed at myself. I'm not gonna get it. Anyways, the word was infatuated. Infatuated. Yeah. Yeah, it just didn't feel real enough. It felt very dramatized, and so I couldn't connect with it. That's okay. So, Lolita, you are next. Today was a very sunny day. I was not expecting it. It was supposed to be cloudy. And I quite enjoyed it. I like being outside and reading and writing. I did a little bit of writing as well. Anyways, okay. Good night. I finally finished Lolita. I don't even want to talk about this book, honestly. Like, it feels weighty. I feel very weighted with this book, this narrative. There's just so much I want to say and I don't feel like saying it. You know, when you have to like recount things to someone, like some big event that happened to you, but it's actually really traumatizing and like you don't want to get into the details because it's just like too much. That's how I feel about this book. That's how I feel about talking about this book. There's just too much. It's a lot. And that's the reason why I took so long to finish it. I started it, I think, July 7th. It's September 22nd. I just finished it. It's about a 30-something to 40-something-year-old man who becomes fascinated with this 12-year-old girl. I think she starts from the age of like 9 or maybe it's like 10. The narrative goes all the way up until she's 17 years old. Essentially, this man, Humbert, the protagonist, is a P3. It's a very traumatizing read. I would not recommend this to anyone. Even though the language is very beautiful, Vladimir Nabokov is a beautiful writer. Of course, we all know this. This is my first book I've ever read from him, but it's like, it's not worth it. It's really not worth it. And like, I put myself through a lot to read this. It was just like, it's not like I have my own trauma. No, low-key I do. Let me not get into that. Wow, this book was a lot. Like, you can literally see I'm just like not in the mood. Like, I'm low-key just like a lot of people like to call this a romance novel. It is not. It is not. I will say that with my full chest. It's not a romance novel at all. It's not. There's literally no romance whatsoever. There can't possibly be romance between a adult man and a child. There's no consent between that. And okay, you know what? Here's where I'm gonna go into my notes because I have things to say now. Now y'all got me stirred up. Number 1, Humbert seems to hate adult women. He never has anything nice to say about them except this one woman. Her name is Rita, that he ends up meeting, and she's a lot younger than him. But I digress. She's still like an adult. But yeah, he hates adult women. He always has something nasty to say about them, just who they are. He has never said a nice thing about a single adult woman in this whole narrative, and there are a lot of adult women in it. He only speaks fondly of children, girls. Yeah, he has something with adult women. Like, he does not like them. And he never explicitly says that. He never says that, but it's just like, you can tell, it's very obvious. He also views himself as an equal to nymphs. Nymphs are what he calls girl children. There was a line where he said, "I passed by her in my adult disguise." Like, what do you mean by that? You are an adult. Hello? He just views himself as the same as them, and so he tries to make an excuse for it. Another point, he says that he loves Lolita, but he clearly doesn't. There are like so many facets to that, to the love that he has for Lolita. There's so much embedded within that. One being that he only loves her in her nymphness, that he cannot love her outside of that. When she grows older, in a couple of years, when she becomes an adult, he can't love her outside of that, and he said that himself. I knew I had fallen in love with Lolita forever, but I also knew that she would not be forever Lolita. She would be 13 on January 1st. In 2 years or so, she would cease being a nymphette and would turn into a young girl and then into a college girl. That horror of horrors, the word forever referred only to my own passion, to the eternal Lolita as reflected in my blood. He doesn't love her. He just loves the fact that she's a child. Yeah, and that's reflected throughout the whole narrative. That's what this narrative is about, and that's why I hate when people call it a romance, because like, it's just about P3 philia. That's what it's about. It's about a sick, sadistic man that takes advantage of a little girl. That's literally all it's about. There's no romance within it whatsoever. And within there being no love for her, simply just lust, it is also reflected in the way he goes about the narrative, the way he narrates. He only ever speaks about his own emotions, his own feelings, his own wants and desires. He never speaks about hers. We never get a look into who Lolita actually is. He doesn't care enough. He doesn't consider it. It just doesn't pop up in his mind because he doesn't actually love her. He can't. He's her abuser. You can't love someone you abuse. And so there's this like great detachment from the narrative and then who Lolita is. We don't ever get her perspective. And yes, it's in his point of view, but it's like we can also get like a sense of who she is and what she wants and just who she is as a person. We don't get any of that. There's also no regard for her mental, emotional, and physical health. There's a time where she gets sick and he still continues to make advances towards her even though she's sick and literally saying, "I don't feel well." Like, and then he thinks that she's lying, but then upon taking her to the hospital realizes, oh, she was actually sick. There's this one insane quote where he actually verifies that he did not have any regard for her mental and emotional health. But even though he's admitting it, he doesn't even realize he's admitting it. He still thinks that he loves her. Like, it's, oh my God. He says, and this is a long one, so apologies, but you're watching. So, I recall certain moments, let us call them icebergs in paradise, when after having had my fill of her, I think we know what that means, after fabulous, insane exertions that left me limp and azure barred, I would gather her in my arms with at least a mute moan of human tenderness, her skin glistening in the neon light coming from the paved court, through the slits in the blind, her suit black lashes matted. Why are her black lashes matted? Why are they matted? Her grave gray eyes more vacant than ever. Yo. For all the world, a little patient still in the confusion of a drug after major operation. And the tenderness would deepen to shame and despair, and I would lull and rock my lone little Lolita in my marble arms and caress her at random and mutely ask her blessing. And at the peak of this human agonized, selfless tenderness with my soul, okay, hold on, actually, whoa, that's insane. At the peak of this human agonized, selfless tenderness, selfless tenderness, that's crazy to say. Anyways, with my soul actually hanging around her naked body and ready to repent, all at once, ironically, horribly, lust would swell again. And oh no, Lolita would say, with a sigh to heaven, and the next moment, the tenderness and the azure all would be shattered. And then I put a little quote there that says, this sums up the book. This literally sums up the book. He has no regard for who she actually is. He has no regard for her emotions. He has no regard for how she feels, the trauma that she's endured. Even at the end of the book, he wants to still keep her with him. Oh my God. And reading that, you can tell the language is absolutely beautiful, but it's, I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if it's worth it. I don't think it is. It was gut-wrenching. It was sick, but it wasn't romance. Sick as fuck, but it wasn't romance at all. Furthest thing from it. And so it pisses me off when reviewers will be like, oh, this was romance, or this was love, or this is my favorite book, and like, I romanticize it. How the hell are you romanticizing this? You need to seek some help. Like, actually, genuinely, please. Because people that romanticize this book should not be a part of this society. Y'all need to go. Y'all need to go get that fixed. I don't want to be anywhere near y'all that romanticize this sick book. If you liked it, cool, whatever. That's your own prerogative. I didn't enjoy it. I did like some parts of it, like the language was gorgeous. I did feel like he went on many tangents that were not necessary to the plot or the narrative. It got really boring. Interesting read, interesting perspective in the mind of a P3 dope. But as I said before, not worth it. I gave it a 3 stars. Not just because I didn't like it. It just was a longer narrative than it needed to be. So that is it. Finally, I'm done. So De Profundis 8, Oscar Wilde 8. It did so much as inspire me for a novella I want to write. But I also have so many other projects, and I'm just trying to balance so much. School, and then reading, and then this channel, and then writing, work outside of school, then just being a human. It's been a minute since I've uploaded. My apologies, but like I warned y'all. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you for tagging along with me. It's still gloomy outside. We had like 1 day of sunshine, 1 or 2, and it's back to gloom and rain this week, so I appreciate that, honestly. I kind of need it, and I would prefer for the weather to cool down. I'm going to be so happy once it starts to get like that. It's getting there a bit. So thank you for being here. I appreciate your presence so much, endlessly, eternally, and I will see you in my next.